And I'm Safal.
I'm Anna.
I'm Emily.
I'm Dylan.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Kayla.
We'll also be taking questions at the end of our presentation. So to give a brief introduction to what our project's about and the purpose for it, for the past 10 weeks, we've been working with the Museum of Durham History, along with our project lead, Aaron, in order to create a virtual exhibit. The exhibit recently has been traveling through schools as an educational tool for local students. The current problem is that the exhibit is restricted to students who don't have access to the physical exhibit because it can only travel to one school at a time. So we've been tasked to create a virtual exhibit of the 150 Faces of Durham in order to expand it beyond the physical exhibit. The main purpose of our project is for it to serve as an engagement tool and to increase accessibility for students in public schools across Durham. Teachers would be able to access it and use it for educational purposes in order to encourage their students to do research on a particular person or even multiple people. Beyond Durham, students who are homeschooled will also be able to learn about Durham history. Overall, just anybody who wants to learn more about the influential figures that have been in Durham would be able to access the website.
Yeah, so we've had two main stakeholders over this past 10 weeks. Our stakeholders at the Museum of Durham History, Michelle and Patrick. And at the beginning of the process, we were basically in the design phase. So we'd go to them with our ideas, our sketches, and see what they liked and see what they didn't. And we take that and we implement it into our code. And from there, we check in with them from time to time to see and show them any updates to the website. And at each stage, they seemed to like what we had, which was great. They were super fun to work with. We also met with two AWS engineers, Cynthia and Paul, who basically showed us how we could take advantage of AWS using their pay-as-you-go model and learning how to create a production infrastructure. So when we come to scale our project in phase 2, which we'll be talking about a little bit later on, that can be done. And also how we could use their S3 bucket to store images and audio for our website.
In order to build our exhibit, we are using Svelte for the front end, which interprets JavaScript at build time and automatically updates our website as we code. It's also very beginner friendly, which is important as we are eventually passing this off to the museum to maintain, and those in charge may not necessarily have a lot of experience coding. Svelte also has a full stack application called SvelteKit to support development.
In conjunction with SvelteKit, we use MongoDB, which is a NoSQL database service. And we use this to store textual data about the 150 faces that we received from the museum, as well as any uploaded media. And unlike relational databases, NoSQL databases are faster, they're document-oriented, and they don't use as much structured data like tables, fields, columns, etc. And in this way, MongoDB allowed us to store a higher volume of data.
As Dylan mentioned before, we're looking forward to using AWS in conjunction with our site. Right now, we are using AWS's S3 buckets to store and upload all of our media on the cloud. This is mainly all of our images, for example, all 150 faces or any other background images, as well as sound files that we use for our games, which we'll talk about later in this presentation.
In addition, we also use Heroku, which is a secure cloud application platform. And we have our site temporarily deployed here before we ultimately migrate it to AWS for better scalability.
And here's the landing page. So there's the background of 150 faces. And we also have 7 colorful dots, and each color represents a different category from the exhibit. And down at the bottom, there's a button that says Visit Exhibit. And when you click that, it'll take you to the main gallery.
So this is the main gallery page of our exhibit. And as mentioned before, there are 7 different categories in which the 150 faces are sorted into. As you can see here, we've provided many different filtering options for users to sort through each of the faces displayed in the exhibit. At the top part, we have each of the category filters. In the middle, we have a search bar, and we have a filter by first and last name. So this image here shows the filters at work. Right now, we have selected commerce and industries, so each of the individuals that popped up will be related to that category. In addition, we are filtering by name, so looking at specifically people's first names, and then looking at whoever has a B as the first letter of their name.
And say if you want to learn more about a specific historical figure, you can click on the card and the card detail view will pop up. And here you can read more about this person. And for our website, we want to not simply give a large volume of information to our users. We also want to provide a platform for them to engage with the information on the website. So here we have a student project section. So say after reading about the description of a person, the student feels really inspired by them, they can do a project and they can submit it to our website. And once approved by the admin, it will be showcased down at the bottom in a carousel view.
In addition to the main content of our exhibit, we also wanted to increase student engagement with the information. One way we've implemented to do so is the student projects page. At the top, you can see a big carousel that features all student project submissions. If you click any of the images, they will redirect you to that specific project, which could be anything from an essay to a presentation to a painting, or anything else. This is also in complement to what Anna mentioned previously, in which the card detailed view in the main gallery will also contain any projects made with that specific historical figure in mind. Towards the bottom, you can also see that there's a submission form that students would submit their project to. These submissions would then be approved or rejected by an admin, and we'll talk about that process later in the presentation.
So after our very first meeting with our stakeholder, Michelle, she expressed the importance of incorporating some sort of interactive component. And so we knew that through this component, we want to convey this idea that we are all active members of history and that anyone with the right work ethic and the right inspiration can truly spark change in their local community. And so the idea that we came up with was this collaboration space called Faces of the Future, which students would ideally access after they have browsed through the exhibit's contents. And this space takes the form of a student gallery where mostly middle schoolers and high schoolers can share their takeaways and their aspirations for how they will bring about change in their local community. And some additional features on this page include a search bar where a student can search for his or her peers, a clickable modal pop-up displaying more information about each student, and also a form below where one can submit their takeaways to be displayed. And Faces of the Future has numerous benefits, one of which it keeps the content of the site fresh and engaging as it's constantly being updated by its visitors. And in addition, this section will help spread the word about the Museum of Durham history, as classmates can encourage their peers and their friends to post their aspirations as well.
Since both student projects and Faces of the Future have publicly accessible submission forms, we need to be able to reject any spam or inappropriate submissions and approve valid submissions to be shown on our site. So we implemented an admin panel for that purpose. Attempts to reach this admin panel must first be redirected to a login page shown to the right of the screen. As you can see, the admin panel is password protected to prevent people without the right permissions from accessing this part of the site. This page is also hidden from regular viewers, as there is no button or redirect on the main website to take you here. You must directly type in the link. Right now, we have it set up so that typing in the right password triggers a cookie that allows you access into the panel, which unfortunately isn't the most secure.
So as Emily mentioned, this is the admin panel where an administrator from the museum can view submissions to both the student projects gallery and Faces of the Future. And to switch between the two, you can click on the corresponding tab. And you can also use the three buttons on the top to filter submissions by status based on whether submissions are pending, accepted, or rejected. And the submissions are displayed in this table format along with information like their title, the name and email of the student who submitted the entry, the submission date, and their review status. And so then the administrator or the reviewer can go through each row entry and either approve or reject the project by clicking the corresponding bin on the left-hand side. And also, if for whatever reason, the administrator wants to permanently delete an entry, they can do so by clicking the trash icon on the right-hand side. And if you could hit next for a second, please. Right, and so finally, like if the reviewer wants more information about the submitted entry, they can click on the project title and a modal window will pop up. And also if the modal pop-up, in the modal pop-up, the reviewer can edit any submissions to correct any typos or minor errors.
So one thing that came up a lot in our discussion with our stakeholders was how can we increase interactivity with the exhibit? And so we already have things like Faces of the Future and a space to upload student projects, but we thought it would be valuable to create a games page for the students. This would really allow us to see if they're actually retaining the knowledge that they're learning from the exhibit. Currently, we have 2 games displayed here. We have Drag and Drop and Matching Madness, in addition to a space where we'll allow students to submit a form if they have any game ideas or suggestions that they would want to see on the website.
Yeah, so this is our first game, Drag and Drop, where you're basically tasked with dragging a member of the exhibition into their respective category. So this is testing the students' knowledge in a fun way. And we actually redesigned and had to change this game a lot just to figure out the best way to efficiently and test the students' knowledge so that they were really engaging and learning with the exhibit. So if you look to the left, you can see our initial design cards. The categories were initially in a circle with multiple people in the middle, but we refined that down to 3 categories at the top, which are being randomly displayed, matched with a single face that will be replaced once you drag it into the correct category, and we'll be demoing the game later on in our site demo.
So this is our other game, Matching Madness, and like Drag and Drop, we went through a lot of different iterations to try to figure out what would be the best format of the game for the student. So the way to think about this is it's like a memory game and a trivia game combined. So ideally, students will be presented with all of the question cards flipped over, and they will be allowed to click one of the question cards as displayed here. After that, they will be tasked with matching that question with the corresponding individual. And we really wanted to stress the learning aspect of these games. So we allowed for students to, if click that I button on each of the cards, to pull up the corresponding modal if they found that individual interesting, or if they just needed a little assistance while playing the game.
We also included an About Us page that contains information regarding our 150 Faiths exhibit. It also has information about where the museum is located and the contact information for the museum, such as their social media platforms. We also have information about our sponsors and the developers of the website. Alongside that, we also included a link to a feedback form for any suggestions to make in the future, such as detecting bugs by the user or implement new ideas to the website, such as games.
So now we're going to walk through a quick site demo. So this is what users will see as they travel through our exhibit.
Record this computer. All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our speed run of our website. So when you click the Visit Exhibit button, you're brought to this main page. You can filter by these categories at the top, and only people who belong to those categories will be displayed. You can search for particular members. So we're searching for Coach K here. We can click on a modal, which will bring up description and display any student projects available for that person. Also, we can sort by first and last name.
And this is the student project page where the gallery has all the student projects and the student will be able to submit their project down below.
This is the games page, which contains 2 games right now. The first is Drag and Drop, and the second is Matching Madness. We also have a form that allows you to submit a game. We'll look at Drag and Drop really quickly. You're faced with a member of the exhibition, and you have to drag that person to their correct or respective category. Not too sure where this person goes. He looks like a doctor, so we'll drag him here. We can also click the I button to learn a little bit more. So Leonora Coleman seems like she belongs to the arts category, so we'll drag her here. If you get everything wrong, you get a play again button, and you can click it, the score reset, and a new figure will pop up.
And for the next game, it's the Matching Madness, where once you click on a question mark, the question would appear and you'd have to match it with a particular face, and you can click the icon to learn more about the person. So if we think it's that person, then we can click on it, and it would be a red border if it's wrong and a green border if it's correct, just like that, and the score would continue to increase. And once you get them all right, all the cards would flip over to different colors, and it would reset with new faces. And for the Faces of the Future page, just like the student project page, the student will be able to submit their response here and have a chance to be displayed on the gallery right here. And this is the About Us page that contains information about the Museum of Durham History, its location, and about the developers. And you can also submit a feedback regarding the website down here.
Thank you. Right, so we didn't get to everything in phase 1, but there is a phase 2, and we're going to talk a little bit about it now. So some of our goals is to deploy the site to AWS server to take advantage of scaling the website for when that time comes and when users are actually engaging with it, and also taking advantage of their pay-as-you-go model. We'd also like to make the website more accessible so that people with screen readers can be able to efficiently and easily go through the content of the website and learn just like anybody else should. We also want to add more games and make the games that we have currently more mobile friendly. We also want to improve our security and authentication process. So as Emily was discussing earlier, for that admin panel, we want to brainstorm ideas that would make it more secure. And finally, we didn't get to user testing. So that's something that we're looking forward to doing and seeing what students have to say about our website and taking anything that they say and putting that back into our code so that we can improve the user experience.
That concludes our presentation. Thank you so much for listening, and we now open the floor to any questions.